I saw her up this morning before our show even started. So appreciative to talk with the former Deputy National Security Advisor to Donald Trump in his first administration. She's now at the Heritage Foundation. She's an invaluable resource to this show. Victoria Coates is her name. And Victoria, we're so thrilled to have you back this morning. Thanks for making time on short notice.
Good morning, Chris. Good to be with you.
I know you're busy. Let me talk about the strike overnight that Iran says we didn't have anything to do with. Trump announces the ceasefire. Iran said it wasn't us. Israel said they think it is. How likely is it that it was Iran and they're just making it up?
Yeah, but we have a lot of fast-breaking news. There were a couple of things that happened. There was a direct hit on an apartment building in Beersheba, which is toward the south of Israel, which killed a family of four. A horrific event right before the ceasefire went into place. That's not unusual. That particularly the losing side is going to take some pot shots at the end of a conflict, as the ceasefire is coming into effect. But then, yes, they fired off two more rockets toward the north of Israel 4 hours after the ceasefire went into effect. They were both intercepted. There was no loss of life, but this was obviously a violation. Interesting that the Iranians are now denying it. It is possible one of their proxies did it, either from Iraq or Lebanon or Gaza. That seems really unlikely, or the Houthi from Yemen. They've been really quiet for the last 12 days, but I suppose that could be one explanation. The Israelis can track these things, though, and when they come out and say definitively who they think it was, then we'll know.
Can you say for certain that Iran is, I guess we can never say for certain, can we, that they're good faith actors in a ceasefire? Or can we just always assume they're up to no good, even if they say ceasefire?
No, from my long experience with them, they're up to no good. They always are up to no good. And no. I think the only way we can get them to the negotiating table in a mood to make some serious concessions is by doing what Israel and the United States have done for the last 12 days, which is display to them with absolutely unequivocally that they are powerless besides the combined might in particular of Israel and the United States. We can fly with impunity. We can hit them. They can't do anything about it. The supreme leader knows he's alive by the grace of the president of the United States, who could take him out at any time. So that's the only language they understand, which is brute force. And I think we can get past these two rockets, our missiles rather, if Israel can take a sort of commensurate strike and then get back to the business of the ceasefire.
I was interested in the little exercise Iran engaged in just before, or right after, I guess, President Trump announced the ceasefire. It was almost as if they telegraphed and said, hey, we've got to respond to these B-2s blowing up our nuclear sites. We've got to do something. So do you mind if we fire off a few shots? And it was basically like the Qataris told us they're going to fire off a few shots. We've got it handled. And the Qataris did. Was that just, it almost seemed rote, like a play that was rehearsed. Like Iran felt they had to do some sort of show, and the Qataris thought, all right, that's cute, we'll let you. And Trump seemed to know all along that's what they were going to do and was fine with it.
Yeah, it was pretty much theater, that they wanted something they could show on their domestic TV channel. Oh, we were so strong. We stood up to the Zionist entity. We stood up to the United States. But make no mistake about it, the Qataris were annoyed. This is a dangerous thing to do. They don't like having their airspace closed. And what struck me, Chris, is you had pretty much everybody. You had the Saudis, you had the Emirates, you had Bahrain, which has a long history with Qatar. You even had the Palestinian Authority coming out and condemning this and expressing solidarity with Qatar. So in a way, the Iranians are bringing the region together and in opposition to them. And so, yes, it was theatrical. No, nothing got through. There was no loss of life, virtually no damage. So it shows you how powerless they are. But at the same time, nobody has much patience for the Iranians at this point.
I struggled to put to words, I tried, and I will do so a little later. I struggled to put to words how, in my view, historic this feels. What this president orchestrated without a single United States life in jeopardy managed to pull off, it appears, and I know right now that's not the case, but it appears a total ceasefire between two countries who have been at war for 12 days, again, without a single man or woman in harm's way as it relates to our country. That is... How do you quantify it? I mean, is there anything like it in American history, quite frankly?
No, this is unique, and there are a lot of factors at play. I mean, 2 weeks ago, it would have been unimaginable that essentially Israel and the United States could now dictate terms to Iran. I mean, Iran were the ones who were stringing things along 2 weeks ago, seemed to hold a lot of cards. Now they have virtually none. And I think you see this combined might. And bear in mind, the American taxpayer has made a historic investment in Israel's security over the last really 30, 40 years. We have developed these really exquisite joint capabilities that allow us to have just vast superiority in air, in missile defense, in all sorts of different capabilities. And so, that is a very clear signal, I think, to the rest of the world that the United States takes care of our friends, and our friends also take care of us, because Israel's done the bulk of the fighting here. They're the ones who have continuing to lose lives, like that innocent family in Beersheba. So this is, I think, a very clear demonstration of might. But as you say, this is the United States winning a war, getting our objectives met, and then ending the thing. That is what the president wants. Now, if the Iranians don't want that, if they want to be beaten up some more, he's made clear he'll do that too. But he's also made clear he much prefers diplomacy.
For those who said, and I don't mean to pile on and gloat, I really don't, because I think there were some sincerely held beliefs that this country and many of Trump's voters, all of us, don't want war, and many are exhausted with the idea of war and 20-year wars, decades-long wars. I think many earnestly held the conviction we don't want to get involved in conflicts. Having said all that, was this different in your view, and if so, how so, than, say, in Iraq, Afghanistan, or even Ukraine and Russia?
This is very different, and there are a couple of reasons. For starters, in a way, this is the longest war. It's been going on since 1979, and nobody's been able to do anything about it until now, when we were on the cusp of seeing Iran with a nuclear weapon. So that's one thing. This is ending a war, not starting one. The other is that the president was very clear from the get-go that while he admires the Iranian people, he wants them to have a better future. This was not about regime change. His Truth Social post from the other day notwithstanding, that was about the Iranian people taking things into their own hands, not about hundreds of thousands of American troops invading Iran in order to make it into a Jeffersonian democracy. No, this isn't a social engineering experiment. This is the defense of the American people, who should not be threatened with a nuclear weapon in the hands of a crazed theocrat like the supreme leader of Iran. So if you keep that objective firmly in mind, and that is what you're trying to do, then you get in, you do what you have to do, and you get out. And if you think back to Iraq, if we had done that and simply looked for the weapons of mass destruction, found them or didn't find them, end that threat and get out, and we would have had a very different history in Iraq.
Sorry to interrupt you, but it is disingenuous, Victoria, to try to suggest that Donald Trump is anything like the George W. Bush administration and their strategy in the Middle East.
Oh, exactly. That's what I'm saying. If we had followed a more Trumpian strategy in the Middle East under President Bush, I think we would have had a much better result if we could have seen something like what we're seeing today. So I think that's why it's very different, that we're not trying to get involved in building civil society. We are simply trying to end a threat to the American people, even while we wish the Iranian people well.
I know you have to run because a lot of people want your expertise this morning, so I'll close with this question. As the president heads to NATO, I think a big bit of news that was left out of all of this was that all the NATO countries, save Spain, agreed to pony up the cash that Trump's been demanding they pony up. I think that is a huge development, is it not?
Well, it is, and that's what we want to see in The Hague, because we've got the 10 largest economies, including Spain and the United States. The United States is at 3.5% of GDP on defense. Everybody else is kind of on vapors at 2% or pledging to get there in a couple of years. I think the president's going to deliver some tough love here, that he likes what they're saying, but he wants to see some cash on the barrelhead. So I think this is again, a signature issue for him, something that he's been taking very, very seriously, and it's critically important. If we're going to be spending a lot of money, and I haven't seen estimates of what Saturday night cost, but it's going to be a pile of money. If we're spending that in the Middle East and looking to the Pacific, we really need Europe to step up on its own defense.
Is this the most successful foreign policy president that we've seen maybe since Reagan. Is that too much?
He's certainly off to a great start. I think, we'll see what happens next. This is a changeable, and volatile world that we live in. But what a contrast, Chris, with the fall of Afghanistan in the first summer of Biden's term. I can't get over the contrast between that and what we're seeing unfold right now.
Yeah, it took more than just some don'ts from Joe Biden. Victoria Coates, thank you for your time this morning. I know you're busy. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.